You face battles most never fought, pain, struggle, adversity. But here, we use that as fuel. This is the Battle Harder podcast, where we motivate, educate, and inspire warriors of life, veterans, survivors, leaders. We share stories and strategies to turn pain into progress. Here's your host, Coach Rob. Let's lock in and battle harder.
What is up, guys? This is your host, Coach Rob, with the Battle Harder podcast, where I hope to motivate, educate, and inspire you to become the best version of yourself. This is a very special episode. This episode is called Forged by Fatherhood, Strength, Sacrifice, and Legacy. This is a Father's Day special event episode, and I thought of no other person better than to have someone who I consider not only a brother, but a best friend. He's a father. He's a good man, Navy veteran just like me. And we're going to have a good conversation today about Father's Day. This dude is the godfather to my kids. Like, we've literally been in thick and thin for a very long time. And I'd like to welcome to the show, Stephen Lane.
Hey, here we go. How you doing? What's up, everybody?
So just so everybody knows, my boy Steve, who is my best friend, we've been friends since, 2002?
2003, when I came to Japan, when we were in
2003.
Yokosuka together.
Do you even, because I don't remember this, do you even remember how we became friends? Because I don't know.
We were just in section together, and that's it, man. We just rolled out from there.
So for you guys that don't know, both Steve and I were military police officers or master at arms in the Navy, and we were both stationed in Japan, which was probably one of our best duty stations of all time. Great command, great people, lots of good times. And me and Steve got into a lot of shit together out there in the streets of Yokosuka, enforcing the law, arresting people, and doing all the things that we had to do as Navy police officers. But beyond that, most of you guys know that I'm a father of three. My daughter is 25, my middle son is 24, and my youngest is 13. And Steve also has a son. How old is Brendan now?
23.
23. And incidentally, both of us came from divorce. Both of us came from being married to Black women and having mixed kids. And so as time grew on, we just kind of shared that affinity for the struggle in life that we went through. And so, being a father is very important, I think, to both of us. Both of our fathers are also veterans. Both of our fathers are, not very easy people to live with. And we've both had to take things, good and bad, from our fathers that we wanted to instill in our kids, whether we wanted to change something or bring that same style of parenting to our children. So Steve, just tell my community a little bit about yourself and currently like what you do.
Oh, yeah. So 20 years in the Navy, all master arms, toured 3 tours in Japan, 2 hospitals, Bethesda and Pensacola, and then did a tour in Afghanistan for 1 year on the personal protection detail. And then finally ended up where it all started, at Lackland, where my training started. And I ended up being an instructor there, retired out of there, and then got lucky and started contracting out of there. So that in a nutshell. But through my personal life, like you said, got divorced early in my Navy career. And then eventually halfway through, remarried, have 2 beautiful daughters. I mean, yeah, they're my stepdaughters, but they're my own nonetheless. That's it in a nutshell.
And, my bad, dude. I should have mentioned the stepfather. And for you guys that don't understand, so here we are, we have Steve, who is a man, a military man. He had the ability to retire, and, he's living a purposeful life with his instruction and training young sailors to, how to be good cops and all that good stuff. But he also married another woman that he fell in love with. And instead of not taking on the responsibility of being a father, he kind of took full responsibility head on, and he tries to instill the best of himself into them and has a very good relationship with them, um, and has even had to fight adversity with, his wife's ex-husband, and things that happen when you are a father, a bonus father, or a stepfather, and juggling that, so both of us had a time. I don't think Brendan really ever never talked to you, right? He's always been kind of present in your life.
Yeah, well, he's been present one way or
But
another. Absolutely.
right, right. And so, for my son, he didn't speak to me for 3 years, and I still don't know why, but it doesn't matter because we have a good relationship. And both Steve and I can probably tell you that good, bad, hard, it doesn't matter. We're always going to be there for our kids. As his son is, pretty much an adult, and my two other kids are pretty much adults. If they need something, they can call us anytime, right?
Absolutely.
So, what do you want to speak on as far as your father? And, you don't have to share, you share whatever you want, but that either he instilled good or bad that you decided not to, or to use in how you parent your children and your parenting style.
I don't know. I think I just do the best I can every day for them. Always love, care, and give them like any other parent. I believe give them what I didn't have as a kid, right? So kind of spoiled them in a sense. But at the same time, I hope you know they have the integrity and discipline that I've instilled to them or taught them. Be good to other people. You know, always be honest and truthful. Have integrity when nobody's looking. You know, just basic everyday values, right? And be hardworking. And that's one of the other things too. Be hardworking and just believe in yourselves. I know times are trying for some kids nowadays. Some for my daughter, some for my son. So it is what it is. But they could always come to us, look for us for life. Like Brendan, as a young adult, had to make a decision whether he wanted to stay with his mom or not, and he decided. I told him, "Hey, man, this is a big decision you have to make." And he wanted to come down when I was coming back from the States for after my tour in Greece. Actually, he was still in Greece, and he wanted to come down to Texas and live with Marquita. Me and Marquita were not yet married, but long story short, he had to make the conversation with his mom. It was a conversation that he had to do at a young age, and it was, like I said, I guess one step closer to being an adult and being a man. And hard conversation he had, and obviously it went my way. He came down to Texas. By the time I finished I'm sorry, I wasn't in Japan, I was in Greece. By the time I finished my tour in Japan, he was in Texas. And then when I finally got to my final duty station at Lackland, he came down here, and he's been here since 2019. So he was a young adult, and he had to make a decision based on what was going on there. And then when I met Marquita, and we started being serious. The big thing about that, it was being our second relationship. The biggest thing we had, and we both agreed upon, if our kids did not get along and did not accept us as a parent or guardian or somebody to look after them, we weren't going to continue the relationship. So the kids' love and respect towards each other and towards us as adults was a big part on how this relationship was going to go. And we figured out not too long ago, 17 years later, we're here. So
That's a beautiful thing. And I don't remember your story on why you joined the Navy. Was Brendan already born prior to you going into the Navy? Because you went in a little bit older than I did at the time.
yeah, I entered 29, 30 years old. And yeah, Brendan was just born. It was supposed to be the 4-year plan. Get 4 years, get in, get out, get some benefits, get an education. But it ended up being 20 years. And in hindsight, greatest decision of my life.
Now, was part of that decision made because of Brendan? And I know, from us being friends for a very long time, not seeing Brendan a huge majority of this Navy time was very rough and hard for you. How did that develop and make you feel? And I mean, I know that you and Brendan have an amazing relationship now, but how did you guys overcome that?
So when I joined, It was rough because I was a new father, newborn. Him and his mom we weren't getting along as great, so I joined. I knew I could take care of him, when to groove off, what are the benefits for my son. It was mostly when I joined was for him. And next thing you know, like I said, was able to come back home. I didn't see him a lot as much as I would like to, but we were always in contact. It was always FaceTime or Skype, depending what it was, whatever application, right? But always kept in touch. But then when I was stateside, I was back for a couple of weeks at a time. I would make more visits. He would be with me more. Then finally got stationed in Maryland. It was every other weekend. I got to see him. All the holidays, all the school weeks they had off, he would be with me. So yeah, as he got older, time spent with him got more. And then finally he made that decision to come down here, and he spent his junior and senior year of high school, and now goes to college at UTSA over here, but no longer living with me. So we're back to where he's no longer living with me. Um, he's doing good for himself. He has a full-time job. He lives on his own, has his own car, going to school, and the greatest thing about the military was I was able to provide him that money, those funds for education. And that goes for my other daughters too. They get the same benefits he gets, whether they choose that path or not, that's up to them. But they still get the same love and respect that I always gave my son, even though he's my blood. They're just as much, I don't know how to say it, they're just as much as part of me as Brendan is, and they've been there for so long and through, so much between traveling the world and whatnot. And that's one thing that was great too. Like the Navy gave these kids and my family uh, the advantage to see different parts of the world. All three kids got to see Greece with us. They got to see Okinawa, Japan. They got to see parts of Maryland. Over stateside, we get to travel a little bit here and there to see other things. But man, it's been amazing what
Um,
the military has provided.
so as a father, like with the girls, it wasn't always easy. What did you do to continue to fight to show them that you loved them, and like kind of what was the breaking point where they, I guess, accepted you as their father, so to speak?
It was just a gradual, I guess, maturity and naturalization of things to happen. Jade was so young; she didn't know better. I ended up just growing up with her. She was not even a year old when I met her, so
Oh,
she
wow.
knew me. Started to know me through FaceTime when I was in Afghanistan, because me and Marquita started to get real serious as I deployed for Afghanistan. So there was a lot of interaction through uh, FaceTime or Skype, whatever. And by the time I came home, it wasn't uncomfortable. And it was just a matter of the kids meeting, see how they got along. Because then when I was in Afghanistan, I was also stationed in Maryland. So it was able to frequently, the kids would get along every other weekend, but whatnot. And it was great.
So with Brendan, because at the time, when he got with Marquita, he was a teenager, correct?
No, Brendan was, oh man. So I met Marquita 2009. So he met her in 2010.
Yeah, but how old was he at the
And
time?
so 9 years old.
It's been that long?
It has.
Holy
Yeah.
moly, man. Like I have no no concept of time when it comes to your relationship. So
He, so when we did the trip to Florida, that was uh, the summer I believe he met her.
so wait a minute, you met Marquita while we were in Japan?
No, no, no. When we did the trip to Disney World.
To Disney World, right, right.
Yeah, so that was 2010.
I don't remember. Were you in Pensacola at that time?
No, I was in Okinawa.
Oh, okay. All right, wait, are you sure?
I I'm positive. I was Okinawa was 2008 to 2011. I was in um Picola from '05 to '08.
Okay, so I was still at the Marine Corps police station then, I guess, at that time.
You were still
Yeah,
active as in Jacksonville.
maybe. I don't know.
And then, no, you that was your transition time when you were still active duty. and then you transition to the DoD side.
So when you went to Afghanistan, because I mean I was in Iraqi freedom, but I didn't see combat, and you were in Afghanistan. How did that help? I mean, how did that feel to you mentally, knowing that you're in this hostile area and you have a family, so to speak, that you need to be there for? Like mentally, what did that do to you?
Honest to God, it's kind of like the job, right? Every day when you go on missions or whatever it is, you block it out. You just concentrate on the mission. You make sure you get back, right? So when you get back, um, got back on missions and days, depending on the hour of the day or whatever, or night, call home. Just call, touch base every day, show them their love, just talk about whatever their day's about, because, your day is not that exciting. You're on missions just trying to survive, and, anything should ever really happen, you really can't talk about it. Um, but no, touch base every day when I could, or any day I could, right? It wasn't every day, but at least 2, 3 times a week they would hear from me. It would be Marquita, the girls, Brendan, mom and dad themselves. So,
They had morale calls, or you guys had your own like cell service out there?
oh no, I had my own cell phone, my own laptop, so we had service, so we can just be in our little 6x6 room, which was a Connex box, right? So they just made a Connex box 6x6 room. It was like a prison cell, but it wasn't that bad, right?
Yeah, but so I'm gonna date myself here. This is where I'm like a dinosaur because I was stationed in Egypt for 6 months, and my ex-wife was pregnant with our daughter, with my first child, and we didn't have like cell phone use or laptop use or FaceTime or Skype. I literally had that big boxy green phone that had a cord and a handle, and you would have
Right.
to call an operator into the US to connect you, and you only literally got like 20 minutes of speaking time to say what you had to say before you got off. So a different era, I guess, so to speak. So that's cool that you had the ability to talk to your family and stuff. You didn't call me from Afghanistan, motherfucker. I don't ever remember getting a call from you from Afghanistan. What the hell, dude? That's not
I
cool,
don't
man.
know. 2012.
What is
I don't
what is
know.
something what is something that you had to unlearn or fight through as a man and as a father?
Just the kids growing up, certain things, just especially with the girls, right? Boys are easy to grow up with, but the girls, that's something else, man. Uh, you're always a little more protective,
Mm-hmm.
especially being a guy and being, you know, I know what dirt I did when I was younger, right? And I don't want
Mm-hmm.
that dirt done by girls, but I gotta kind of accept shit's gonna happen, right? As long as it ain't bad, as long as they are able to protect themselves, and do what I can do on my end to help them guide and let them know what's up. And with Brendan, same thing. Like I know the dirt I done, and I told learn from that. Always be respectful. Never be a jerk to anybody, whether it be a woman, man, a mom, dad, an adult. Always be respectful and treat people with dignity. All right? Never, even if you don't like them, at least respect them and respect who they are.
Do you think that our core values of honor, courage, and commitment in the Navy has helped instill some of that stuff as a parent and as a man into your life?
I think I had that long before I even joined, just because of my upbringing, mom and dad, grandpa and grandma as well. The, I mean, the military, I get, how they instill it, but it's for the military, right? It's sometimes hard. Like it's all about those values are for your military time, right? And I understand those, but at the same time, it's a little different on the civilian side, right? Or on your family side, it plays a little different.
I mean,
I don't know how to explain it. It's just there's right honor, courage, commitment, right? You want to be always doing your best and be honest about what's going on the job.
yeah,
You
have
want to have
integrity
right your courage to just fight on and be courage to back that integrity, and then
or
be
speak up
committed
for
to the
what's right.
right and be committed to the mission and could be committed to what is right. Same, but it's all mission based, right? But when you're outside, it's not no longer mission based. There's other factors, right? There's what are the consequences of them doing this and that. When you know the consequences in the Navy, because you know the UCMJ, everything's written out for you in black and white in a sense, right? It's just a matter of somebody else making the decision whether what your punishment's going to be or not be, right? When you are a parent, you understand black and white, right and wrong, but you always travel that gray line because, you know, your love, your emotion towards them is deeper than what is towards your military life. So it's kind of, yeah, does the core values help? Yeah. But I think everything came from when I was a kid and growing up, and what mom and dad had built inside of me, and my grandparents, and just my family, my family core values, I guess you could say, not so much the military. Did the military help? Absolutely. Did they make me a better person? Yeah, most definitely. Probably one of the things I didn't expect, right? My the biggest notice I knew the military was a big improvement when my first, I guess, year and a half, right? So our first year in Japan, it was like almost a year and a half, 2 years before I went back. And all my friends that I kept in touch with, right, they didn't change. They stayed stagnant. And I kind of really changed and matured in a way that I didn't know happened until I came back home. And then some of those friends I lost kind of contact with. There's only two people I really do staying friends with. They're Sam and Tyler, and they've been my boys ever since. And actually, they're post high school friends. They're post uh, and just prior to the military, but it was different. And they were, like you said, like I said, that's the biggest change in the military. I see where growth has been made. And
Yeah.
and as a father, like, right, it's crazy because when you make rank, you're supervising younger people, right? No, not as young as your kids sometimes, but now some of them are, right? But growing up and then being able to supervise people that are younger than you, and you know, sometimes they have personal issues and personal problems back home, right? So I think being a father and instinctively trying to help younger generations in the military helped me guide them, but it also make me realize on the upside, maybe my kids are going through some things too, and I just have to reel that in sometimes. And sometimes it ain't always easy. That's what Marquita helps me does. Like, she's my balance. Like, sometimes I am that harsh, stern, strict father, like this way or no way, right? And fatherhood's not just about you. It's a balance, especially if you're married, and it's a balance between you and the wife and the mother. And it's good to have that balance because sometimes you learn from it and you can incorporate it into you as a father and just to be a better parent, all in all.
And I think that's very important. And I like what you said there because, first of all, your support system is huge. Now, obviously, if you're a single father and you're not married or you don't have a partner to help you, it can be a lot tougher and harder. But I like what you said about, you have to have that communication with the people in your life that are around your children so you can benefit the children and not yourself. And being a father is a very sacrificial thing. If you're in it for yourself, then you're not necessarily going to be a good father because you have these young humans, these people that you're literally instilling everything into them from the time they're born and imprinting on them all the way until they're adults. And I even remember, as far as being a protector for Cyan, with her last boyfriend before the young man that she's with now that I actually like, her boyfriend did her dirty. And I remember having to text him because he was like keeping her stuff. And I basically told him, like, look, dude, you better give her back her stuff or we're going to have a talk and you're not going to like it. And he gave her stuff back. And, she was very appreciative of that. But even now, at 25, if something happens, she'll call me if something upsets her, if she doesn't know how to deal with somebody at work. And that's a beautiful thing. And that's something that I had to instill in them because unfortunately my father, if I call him and ask for advice, he's going to complain about his life and he's not going to give me any advice. So I had to be different. And I don't know, for you as a child, how your father raised you. But I know, like, for me, my dad didn't say I love you. My dad didn't tuck me in. He didn't really do any of that stuff. So when I had my kids, I was always tucking them in. I tell them I love them to this day. Every conversation with my daughter, my sons, ends with "I love you," and I think that's important. And I want, and you can put your comments in on this, but I want the community and public to know that everything I do is, personal development, mindset, overcoming adversity, breaking trauma, breaking cycles. Can't fall in the same trap. If your parents were bad parents, it's okay. Like, that's gives you a learning opportunity to do better and be better, but you have to break that generational curse and do you how you think your kids would be better raised and not be afraid to do that. So would you like to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, growing up, um, mom, dad fought, whatever. They had their rough times, and it's just not that you're breaking a generation. If you learn from their mistakes, and you just don't want to make the same mistakes they did, or if you do fall in that pattern, don't maybe you don't want to go down their path. You just learn from their mistakes, like you learn from your mistakes and what is good and what's not, and what works, right? So I think it's just as you get older, and hindsight's 2020, right? So it's really good to see as I get older what they did wrong, or what I could do better. So mistakes are lessons learned, um, per se. And then dad, mom, they, I guess I'm no different. Like, dad taught me baseball. Uh, you know, hit the ball in the park. I got a couple black eyes he gave me, because we're playing baseball, but he was always there. Always went to my games when I was a kid. Um, Always, tell me I love you and everything. I remember kids too. Like, the thing was always be close. When I was little, got this army set. It was called Guns of Navarone, right? And I was like, we would set this thing mountain up with cannons in it and just set up the army men and everything. And it was just, you know, that was part of Christmas, like just being close to mom and dad. And then we would go to relatives. But dad was always, I don't say he always tugged me in, but it was always good night when, he'll be watching Monday Night Football or something. And I'll say good night. It's 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, whenever our bedtime was. Give him a hug, good night, say I love you, and go to bed, right? Maybe he didn't tuck us in, but it was always, some kind some kind of affection, whether it be verbally or physically. It was just something. And then, mom worked nights, so dad was actually pretty relevant in my evening life as a young kid and things he did, like, cooking dinner for us and all that. And then during the day, mom's home on weekends, and then things we did as a family was like clean the house, like once a month on a Saturday. We would do stuff. I don't think my childhood was anything extraordinary. I think it was just average, but it was a good upbringing. You know, um, yeah, my childhood was pretty cool, honestly. During high school though, it was a little rough. Like, mom and dad had their struggles and everything. Um, and here was a real valuable lesson I learned from my godfather, my Uncle Ken. And the reason why I say that, mom and dad were going through a rough time. And me and my brother were kind of in the middle of it. But what I was doing was, I didn't have a license yet, but I would take off on my 10 speed, whatever, go drive, take off, get out of the whole situation, right? Escape that reality. And then by the time I got my license, I would just drive off, right? So that was within a year. So my godfather sat me down. And one of the things he said is, your mom and dad are adults. Let them be what they have to be. You know, for you, you can be whoever you want to be. Be selfish for you so you could be a better person. And he's like, don't get me wrong, don't be selfish to the point where you're just closing off anybody. Just self-preservation. Do the best you can for you all the time. And that's another thing too, right? About parenthood. If you ain't the best version of you, your kids are going to see that, right?
Mm.
And it happens. And I saw it through my parents. I saw some of their bad times, and it happens. But the thing is, like my uncle said, do the best that you can for you. So I think when you grow up and become a father or even a mother, whatever it may be, that you're the best version for those kids and for your kids, and you give them that your best out of love, out of good consciousness, you know.
Definitely. So with Brendan being mixed and Mike is being mixed, I remember I've had to give all three kids the talk about dealing with law enforcement if they get pulled over, dealing with society, dealing with kids in school, and telling them that, unfortunately, like, they have to use their being mixed as a superpower, so to speak, because essentially they're not going to be black enough for the black kids and they're not going to be white enough for the white kids. And society is always going to look at them when they go for a job or when they, date somebody. They're going to look at them as a black person over a white person, regardless of how my kids see themselves, whether they want to be white or black or whatever they want to lean into. I had to give all three kids the talk. Did you ever have to give Brendan any kind of talk like that?
Yeah, but I think, you know, with social media and everything going on and the information that's out there, they're able to understand that. But we've had those talks with them, sometimes you're going to be in situations where your color could be a factor, and you've got to understand that, and you've got to be mature enough to react responsibly and not overreact or get yourself out of that situation. Yeah, it's a tough conversation, and the way society is, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. It all depends on the environment you're in. Hopefully they never get into that really bad environment or they don't have to face that, but we prepare them mentally to say, okay, this is not a good situation. Let's figure something out and get out of this, whether it be work, social, being at a social event or something, or even at school. Sometimes it might be your peer pressure. If those people are like that, they're not worth being your friend. Oh,
Yeah,
and
I
I'm a
think
dog. I'm a father to a doggy too.
I am too. Yeah, we're pet fathers as well. I like what you said there. My biggest fear is mainly with law enforcement. Telling and especially for me, well, you too, but me being a police officer for a very long time, about how to talk to police officers and deal with them appropriately. Because I always tell them at the end of the day, I'd rather fight in court for their rights or their protection or whatever happened versus go to a funeral or go to visit them in jail because they didn't deal with law enforcement in today's society appropriately. And I think that's a very important talk uh, for a father to have with their children, regardless of race, but especially if the child is black or mixed or of some other ethnicity other than white, because it's just the nature of the beast. Like, society's teaching us now to talk back to cops and, not comply and not do what we're told. And that can be a very scary predicament for our kids if they're not willing to just, suck it up, bite the bullet, and, move on after whatever the incident is that happened. So, I mean, do you want to touch on that a little bit?
um, I just educate them, just always be respectful. Don't do any sudden movements. Not that my kids have ever gotten into that situation, thank God, and I don't hope they never have to. Um, but yeah, just keep a cool head if it seems like the cop's hostile or maybe seem racist, and hopefully they're not. Most cops are not. I know the media. What's the word I'm looking for?
They paint
Not exaggerate.
yeah, they
They
paint
paint a bad
a
picture for a
different
lot of
picture,
good
right?
cops,
One bad
right? So
cop makes all cops look bad, essentially, unfortunately.
right, and don't get me wrong, like the media is right on like exposing these bad cops, but it's not everybody. So you got to teach them that, right? That it's not every cop, but you have to be cautious of what you're doing if you get pulled over. Cautious if something's going around with cops happening. Just if it's something happened, don't stick around, try and get video. Just get out of there. It's not worth, like you said, your life, injury, or visiting you at a hospital or funeral, right? Just be a smart, just be respectful, and you know, like you said, handle in a court, right? I tell my son, I tell my daughters, if you ever get pulled over, both hands on the wheel until you're instructed to do otherwise. So,
Definitely. If you could looked in the future and saw everything you were going to go through in the military, and we won't touch on like the stuff that happened to you and like the mental health stuff. But if you could go into the future and see all that things as a father and a man, would you have done everything just the way it was all over again?
yeah, I think if I changed anything, I don't think I'd be where I am today. So, or where my kids would be today. So to say I have any regrets or change anything, no, I can't say that, because if I did change anything, maybe that one thing wouldn't lead me where I am today, where my kids are today. The wife I have, and my daughters. No, I don't want to say there's any regrets or anything I would change, because I think, like I said, everything that they are is because of what I went through or what I've been teaching them. So no, I wouldn't change anything.
And I feel the same way. I mean, I've been through hell and back with some things I've dealt with, but I think that's made me stronger as a man and as a father to better be supportive of my children, of my wife, help them out. And people kind of get surprised and we're like, wait a minute, you talk about all this trauma and everything you went through, you wouldn't change it? No, because essentially that's why Coach Rob is Coach Rob. What would you say? So, two questions. First question, what would you say to the man that doesn't get to see his kids but want to? And then what would you say to the man that doesn't give a shit about his kids?
Okay, first part of the question, right? The man that doesn't get to see his kids but wants to be a man to them or a father to them. That's a hard pill, because sometimes it's the law or the legal system that puts that burden that way. I'm not saying it's always fair, but maybe it's in protection of the kids. But if you're a good father and you're trying to don't stop pushing. That kid needs to know that you want to be a father in their life, right? Now, the second question, the Disneyland dad, right? Right. That's the best way I could put it, right? They're gonna offer the world, but they don't really do anything. They don't sometimes pay child support or whatever, and they're just a presence. They're they're just a presence, but they're not present. If that makes sense. Or if they are present, it's in a negative aspect, and it just hurts the kids in general, especially if you have a father figure that's positive in their life, and then you have their biological father that is not. It's kind of hard. And regardless, you know, if the stepfather or the is a good man, it's still um, hard to overcome that biological as a stepfather, right? Because they're connected by blood. They just need to know you love them no matter what, right? My girls know, I know they're my stepdaughters, but those girls know I love them unconditionally. We've had our arguments, you know, but no matter what, no matter how bad they got, always been there for them, ups, downs, whatever. Sometimes my oldest daughter doesn't think so because, she's old enough to make her own decisions right now, and but young enough to not to be naive to life. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, so I just want to preface that or expand on that. If you're a man and you want to see your kids, but you can't because you went to jail, or maybe you have some sort of substance abuse, or maybe your baby mama is driving you crazy, I would say fix your stuff first, deal with your trauma, and then fight for your right to see that child, because regardless of what state or place you're in, most courts do want fathers to see their kids. You may have to jump through hell and back and some hoops and leaps and bounds to get there. But if you want to be there for your kid, fight, fight, fight until there's no fight left when you're eventually seeing your child. And for those fathers that decided to have children and said, well, I don't want any part of that, remember this: regardless of if you're in your kid's life or not, both of those options is going to affect your kid in either a positive or negative way. So choose wisely, because once again, you decided, whether it was an accident or whatever, you decided to do what you had to do to create that life. So take responsibility for that. It is your responsibility to be a leader, to be a good man, to be a pillar of society, and show these kids that you love them. And the rate of society that still has young men and women who are growing up without fathers statistically has shown overwhelming amount that those kids have major fucking issues because they needed dad in their life and dad wasn't there. So think about that before you make a decision to have a child or not be in a child's life. And before we close out this episode, so I wrote this, and it basically says, a father is not a title. It's a battle, a daily decision to protect, to provide, and to lead, to raise warriors by becoming one. So you have to remember, if you're listening to this and you take offense to this, I'm sorry. If you're a fat fucking slob, or you are a loser, you have no hopes, dreams, goals, no purpose, you're not providing for your family, that kid is going to grow up seeing this, and they're going to have the same mindset. If you want your kids to grow up and be who you want them to be, you have to lead by example. So that means being hard to kill, staying in shape, eating healthy, taking care of your mental, physical, and emotional health, being a loving parent, being a loving partner. If you don't do these things and take an overall approach to be better, your kids aren't going to be better, and you can't understand if they fail and you're like, why are you such a loser? Well, maybe you need to look in the mirror. So keep that in mind. You have to raise warriors by becoming one. You're not perfect, but always present. Being present in a child's life is the greatest gift that you can give a child. You don't have to be perfect, but being present, that's what counts. That's what matters. You're not invincible. We're allowed to have feelings, emotions, and bad days, but you're unbreakable. You're always going to be their father. You're always going to protect them. You're always going to be there for them. You don't run from your role as a father. You battle harder for them, and then you battle harder for their legacy. So hopefully they carry that on long after we're gone into their children if they choose to have so. And so before I ask Steve if he has any final thoughts, I just want you to know, if you're listening to this and you're a father figure, or even still healing from your father's absence, you are not alone. You are still in the fight. As long as you have breath in your lungs, you can fight. Share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. Being a father is the greatest gift I've ever had in my life. Out of everything I've ever got to do in my life, from acting to being in the military to being a cop to now being a coach to living this purposeful life, being a father is the greatest gift that I was given. So, Steve, before we close this episode for tonight, do you have any final thoughts or words of wisdom you want to impart on my community?
Yeah, just do the best you can, right? The kids are gonna see your good, your bad, your downfalls, but as long as you know how to come back from that, and they learn from that, and they see that you're okay at the end, I think that's good, because they'll know it's okay to fail. It's okay to fail and lean on family, lean on, and have a good support system. And just realize, you have a good support system, but overall, the life decisions that you make are on you, and you have to live with those consequences. But you don't have to go through it alone. You can always rely on family or loved ones or good friends, right? And just be, like you said, as a parent, be present for your kids as much as possible. It doesn't matter if it's good, bad, or indifferent, but long as you know they can learn and support, you can support them no matter what. And like you said, be present.
And guys, I am not the greatest parent in the world. I think I do a pretty good job. As Steve said, you always got to just kind of do your best. It's not going to be a perfect. You have to live and learn from your actions and what you do. But if you need help because you're dealing with some sort of trauma, if you need help being a better parent, if you don't know how to talk to your kids, especially if they're teenagers, I have 25 years plus of being a parent to 3 kids on this earth. And my kids have turned out pretty good. I'm pretty happy with the results. I'm always here if you need help. And Steve, brother, thank you for doing this very special episode with me. I wanted to do a Father's Day. It was kind of in my heart and soul, and no better person I could think to be on the podcast with me tonight. So I appreciate that. And guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to the Battle Harder podcast. I've been your host, Coach Rob, and remember to always be fit for battle. Peace.
You've just heard another battle-tested conversation. Now it's time to take action. If this episode lit a fire in you, subscribe on Spotify, Apple, iHeart, or YouTube, so you never miss a moment that could change your life. Want to go deeper? Connect with Coach Rob at BattleFittedBrand.com for coaching, gear, and tools to help you turn your pain into progress. Remember, life will test you, but you're built to battle harder. Until next time, stay locked in, stay ready, and keep showing up.